It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. For those of you who are just joining in, this is one of my favorite times of the year. Yes, it's the holiday season, and it should be all of our favorite times of the year. But more importantly than that, this is the time of year every holiday season, as long as we've been doing Her Success Story over 7 years, is about sharing nonprofit leaders, people out in the world who are making a difference, who are protecting so many people, making a difference in so many families, making a difference in so many lives. For the holidays, I've always believed it's about learning to give as well as receive. So from the first year that we started Her Success Story in 2018, we started doing for the holidays a series on nonprofit leaders. So today I want to welcome somebody who I've been incredibly impressed with is Michelle Jewsbury. She's a dynamic force transforming personal stories into powerful narratives. She's the founder and CEO of Unsilenced Voices. With the mission to empower survivors of pain and trauma, Michelle has emerged as an internationally recognized speaker, coach, and advocate. She is making a difference in so many people's lives. And based on, she's learned about this because it breaks my heart from a real life story of her own. So Michelle, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for bringing Unsilenced Voices to Her Success Story.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ivy, for being here. And hello to everybody out there. Excited to answer questions and have this conversation with you, Ivy.
So tell me, when did Unsilenced Voices get started? Let's look at the origin of this, because I'm always origins of all businesses, let alone nonprofits that are businesses in so many ways, are always of interest. How did this get started?
So let me take you back to 2011. I moved to Hollywood, California to pursue an acting career. And while I'm in Hollywood, I loved the glamour, the glitz, the lights, all of that fun stuff. But I ended up meeting somebody who I thought was going to be my Prince Charming. And lo and behold, about 4 months into our relationship, he pushed me so hard against the wall that my head went through it. And I didn't understand domestic violence. I didn't grow up with domestic violence in my household whatsoever. I ended up staying with him for over 4 years, experiencing all forms from emotional manipulation, physical violence, sexual abuse, psychological manipulation. And I decided once I finally escaped to start documenting my story. So in 2016, I wrote and performed a 65-minute solo play about my experience in domestic violence. But what happened next was people came up to me and started telling me their stories. And that's when I looked up at God and I said, okay, I hear you. What do you want me to do now? 2017, I sued my abuser, and I used a large portion of that settlement money to start Unsilenced Voices.
It's making lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate you being so transparent and sharing so much of that story. It takes a lot of guts to take a traumatic experience and create it into a one-woman show. And it takes even more guts to then create a mission and a full nonprofit, which makes the decision of you being CEO of running a business. And hats off to you, because that's brave.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And honestly, it's a lot of work. I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
So 2017, I was literally pouring Jack and Cokes as a bartender. And I remember my first mastermind were the bar rail individuals. And I'm like, hey guys, I think I'm going to start a nonprofit. They're like, cool, Michelle, grab me another beer. But lo and behold, I started the nonprofit, and there was a Ghanaian doctor that came into that bar and said, I love your mission. I love what you stand for. Please go to Ghana and see what you can do. And I packed my bags and flew to Ghana shortly after. And from there, we expanded to Sierra Leone. That's where the bulk of our programming still is. We've also worked in Rwanda and the US. Currently, we help support 2 villages between Tobu and Selahoon in Sierra Leone. And we are looking to build a school so that we can really have a lot of our survivors go through vocational training instead of us sending them to other schools or using our office as a school, because that's what we're doing right now. Yeah. So we really need the funding in order to actually build the school. But we literally help roughly 1,800 people between the 2 villages and the girls that we support.
What have you learned, especially when you quickly started taking this international? That was your first venture, so to speak, and that's gutsy. What did you learn when you started on that journey?
It's gutsy, yes, but it wasn't my mission. It's God's mission. And I felt like that He was calling me to go that direction. When I first set foot on the African soil, it wasn't in Ghana or Sierra Leone. It was actually in Kenya. And I was volunteering for another organization prior to me starting Unsilenced Voices. And I just felt my heart melt when I hit Africa. And I've always had this desire to go to the African continent, to explore, to navigate, to see. And what's really interesting is the mass majority of individuals in first world countries have no idea the taste, the smell, the experience, the senses that you get for actually traveling internationally to third world countries and developing nations. And it is almost overwhelming because you really don't understand the level of poverty, the level of injustice, the level of destruction that happens, and the lack of education surrounding all of this. So when I was there, it really opened my eyes a lot to what we do as individuals, what we as a society, how we react to people's situations, and how we help. I believe that every person on this planet should be helping. And I don't like shitting on people at all, but I am
I agree with you.
suggesting, right? Everybody should lend a helping hand someplace. I don't care if your heart is set on the environment or animals or combating human trafficking or domestic violence issues, but take a stand for something. And that's why we are put on this planet.
I cannot agree with you more, obviously, because we do this nonprofit series because I believe the year I started Slater Success was January of '08. And I had already been somewhat aligned with Dress for Success because I knew people involved in it. And I said, well, wait a second. For me, again, because we should be involved in things, and every nonprofit I am personally involved in has to do with women being able to get a job, have an income, because when we are stable and have resources financially, we naturally put that into educating our children. And it's like just what you're saying, we're looking to build our own school as opposed to having the young people in our offices for education, right? We naturally put that into educating children. And the more we develop and educate smartly our younger children, the better long term our society will be.
Yeah,
Simple
100%.
as
So
that.
whether that's here in the US, whether
Doesn't
that's
matter where it
abroad,
is.
yeah, it doesn't matter where it is. Exactly.
You wrote a book. We have a couple of levels here.
Okay.
Okay. But I love him.
hmm
And when I heard the title, I'm like, oh, like it hit me in the heart. I'll be honest with you. I was like, what drove you to put that in writing?
So, what's interesting is when I wrote and performed the play, the natural inclination was to continue writing. So, that's what I did. My therapist at the time encouraged me to write, and I just started continuing the story. See, the play, it's about 85% accurate because, theatrical, and
Because
we
it's a
had to,
play.
it's exactly. But the book,
It's that comment that goes made for television, right?
exactly,
Based
right?
on made for television.
Yeah, yeah. But with the book, everything is accurate and it's literally my experience in an abusive situation. So you can see from a girl from a small town, didn't experience abuse at all growing up. And then all of a sudden she goes through this highly abusive relationship. And I take you through everything in between, all of the abuses that tend to happen, and then through the lawsuit. And I just felt that I needed to get it out there. And what's interesting is I published this right before we settled the lawsuit. And I'm not allowed to say his name, which is totally fine. So I call him Paul, but I wasn't going to allow him to silence my voice. So this is why I keep speaking. And that's just one of many of the books now that I'm a curator for, I've published, I help other people publish. But I think that it's so important to be able to use your written word and your spoken word to make a difference around the world.
So you took it to the next step where you curate stories. Share a little bit more about that. And I'm
Yeah.
asking you, and I'm going to say, listeners, this is why I'm asking. Okay, I'm being blatantly out there. If anybody listening knows any person, this is a man or a woman or a man, okay? It happens all cross genders that is in a situation that can be abusive in any way. I want you to have resources at your fingertips.
So
Share about this a culmination of stories you
so
putting together.
it's breaking the silence came together because I felt like I needed to speak more, but I felt like it wasn't about me anymore. It was about helping other people share their journeys. And breaking the silence is not just domestic violence. There's all kinds of different stories, from overcoming human trafficking to overcoming drug addiction or disease, mental health disorders, grief, so many different stories. But everybody has experienced something in their life. And I think that by giving other people a platform, we can change the injustice and change the trajectory of how the world is ran today. And when we do that, then we not only heal, but we help to heal those around us. And I think that that's what's so important, because unfortunately, this is very cliche, but hurt people hurt people. So if we stop hurting people, then we'll stop the cycle of abuse. And only through speaking up can we do that.
Where do you see, what's your vision for Unsilenced Voices?
Well, yeah.
I mean, that's a big question.
Well, there's two, right? So there's a big vision for Unsilenced Voices, and there's a big vision for my for profit, which also encapsulates domestic violence survivors. But with Unsilenced Voices in particular, I would love for UV to be a household name. And if I have to step away from the organization and hire a new CEO in order to make that happen, I'm willing to do that. Those girls in Sierra Leone mean more to me than my reputation with the nonprofit. This isn't for me, this is for them. And I expect Unsilenced Voices to grow. So way past Ghana and Sierra Leone and Rwanda and the US, but other countries around the globe. And I would love to hit most of the countries in the African continent, but one of my goals and visions is to break into the Middle East and be able to help and encourage and ruffle feathers, stir the pot a little bit, so that women can have more rights and more freedom in those countries.
I would love to see women with more rights and more freedom so many places in this world today. What has surprised you? You stepped into this position of sharing your story, writing your story, et cetera, to becoming CEO of kind of a nonprofit as well as a for profit, making a global impact. What has surprised you as a leader?
A couple things, really. I mean, at first, you don't know how much work this is. So if I knew
That is
now,
so true.
if I knew then what I
But
know
I knew
now,
then what
yeah,
I knew
there we go.
now.
Yeah, however that goes.
I'd be a hell of a lot smarter.
I don't know if I would have actually started the organization. It's a lot of work, and I am blatantly honest about that. I'm so happy I did, and it's very, very rewarding, but it is a lot of work. And it's like pulling teeth to get donations. And when you run a nonprofit organization, 80% of the nonprofit efforts go towards fundraising. And that's something that I wish that we could change globally for nonprofits around the world, because our focus should be on service, on giving those individuals that we serve the proper education, the proper tools, all of these things, recovery. However, we have to focus a lot of efforts just on the fundraising component of this. So that shocked me a lot going through Unsilenced Voices. And two, is a lot of people are unaware of the statistics, unaware of global human trafficking statistics, national human trafficking statistics, global and national domestic violence and sexual abuse statistics. So I hope that more people become more aware of what's going on and not shy away from these really intense, vulnerable situations that only we can fix. We can't depend on politicians. We can't depend on the government to do anything. It is up to us, you listening right now. It is up to you to make a difference. So that's my hope for the future.
I don't know if Michelle knows this, but this is something I decided to put into this year's nonprofit series. We have been at this for quite a while. Now you guys can do the math. We started our first nonprofit in 2018, our first nonprofit series. I do not do any work in the nonprofit area. This is not about coming back to Slater Success. This is purely about, I believe the holidays are about giving and receiving. We have less than 10 episodes in this series. We have more like 6, 7, sometimes we'll fill it to 8. And it's like, wow, every one of our listeners, if you gave $10 to each nonprofit in the series this year, under $100, honestly, it's kind of like less the kind of the average price of a dinner out in any city. And it would be going forward to really making a difference because $10 add up. 10 people give $10, it is $100. And a lot of our nonprofits this year in the nonprofit series are massive, huge global nonprofits that everybody knows the name of from birth. These are the smaller ones, the ones that every dime makes a difference. So there's my blatant ask for her success story. Michelle, what is one tip that you would share forward for leaders today and especially nonprofit leaders?
Thank you. And thank you for that and telling your audience about the donation aspect for sure. We have a program called Sponsor a Survivor where you can actually sponsor a survivor for $100 a month, pays for vocational training, training materials, a monthly stipend, counseling, and medical treatment for your one survivor. So if you are interested, please go to unsilencedvoices.org. But the one tip that I would give for other nonprofit leaders is just keep going. There's always this imposter syndrome or this feeling of you're not doing enough because there is so much need around the globe, whether that is a nonprofit for animals or for combating domestic violence. There is so much need. And sometimes it's overwhelming how much need there really is. But I'm going to tell you a brief story, and I know we're ending here in a couple minutes. I ended up going to Hyderabad, India with a group of individuals with an organization called Back to Back prior to starting Unsilenced Voices. And we were there caring for an orphanage. Amazing organization. So while we were there, we were able to go visit one of the smaller schools in the slums right next to a garbage dump. I remember getting off the bus and the smell was atrocious. You could smell rotting plastic and food, and flies were everywhere. We ended up making it to the school, which was literally right next door to this garbage dump. And these kids had nothing. They had like one pencil and one chalk, sharing between hundreds of children. We were there and they were loving on us and we were loving on them, and we brought candy and games and had a lot of fun. All of a sudden, one of the leaders from the organization ran in and said, "Everybody drop everything. You have to run now. Get to the bus now." And when I did that, I was like, what is going on? We couldn't stop. We couldn't hug the kids. We couldn't say goodbye. Yeah. When we got back to the bus, I was infuriated. I was so frustrated because why did we have to leave like this? Why did somebody threaten our lives in order to make us have to leave and leave these children? And that's what happened. But I sat next to this young lady and I said, what is the point? There was some other words that came out of my mouth because I was so frustrated.
I would have those same words.
Yeah, but what is the point? Why are we doing this? We're not making a difference. And she said something to me that I still live by to this day. It is not up to us to finish the project. It is up to us to start it. It's up to God to finish it. So sometimes as nonprofit leaders, we feel that it's overwhelming. The weight is so heavy, but we have to remember it's our job to start it. It's up to God to finish it. In the Bible, it's often spoke about, and Jesus said this, that the poor and the needy will always be with us. It is up to us to give and to help where we can, lift that finger and do something, but it's up to God to finish it.
Yeah. Well, Michelle, I thank you for starting Unsilenced Voices. I thank you for being brave to take your journey and not bury it and put it behind you, but put it in front of you to create a path that really makes a difference for so many people in this world. Nobody should ever be abused in any form or fashion. And if anybody knows somebody, please reach out for help. There is so many wonderful organizations in a variety of ways. We're highlighting a couple in this series. I don't care. It doesn't matter what you do. Just do something that's going to help and stand with and stand for that person.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ivy. I think that it's important to highlight so many different nonprofits making an impact. So I love what you're doing.
Thank you. Listeners, this is what we say when we close the show. Take a deep breath in. Think about one aha or takeaway from Michelle and I's conversation today. What was the one thing that hit you, sat with you, made a difference for you? Jot it down somewhere. I don't care if you use pen or paper or if you use your phone or your computer, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you jot it down somewhere and you make a decision to take one action. I will always say every week you step into her success story that we are very grateful for you joining us on, that you listen and you take one takeaway away, one action. 52 weeks later, you will find yourself in great motion. So thank you for joining us here. Remember to check out all the wonderful, wonderful nonprofit leaders that are truly dedicating their lives to making a difference. And thank you again, Michelle, for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Ivy. See you guys later.
Bye.